Diablo 4 was supposed to be great. It was supposed to be grand. It was supposed to be Dragon Age The Veil Gods return to form. It was supposed to be Assassin's Creed Shadows return to form. But instead, we got sadness, disappointment, and, well, as time passes, more sadness and disappointment. I personally thought that a lot of these issues with Diablo 4 can be fixed. But then Blizzard decided, you know what, we're going to take the itemization and we're going to condense it into green arrow point up good. And that's where the game completely died for me, honestly. And now Blizzard, after all my crying and moaning about how bad this direction is seemingly finally seeing the light. But I think honestly it's too late. Because Season 8 is supposed to be hot. And one of the problems with Diablo 4 currently is that, well, the devs are morons. They're completely incompetent, talentless losers who honestly should be trialed against genocide against humanity or something. Because they do not deserve a good ending, okay? Just gonna put it out there, okay? And Season 8 is gonna be harder and harder. Now, the harder part is more grind because they are desperate to make people play the shitty game more. AK, it's going to be slower to level, it's going to be slower to acquire gear, and monsters are going to be more, well, you know, Diablo 3-esque in the sense that even a basic white monster is going to be, you know, going to require you 5 minutes to kill because this is where we are in the point of Diablo 4's future. And harder in the sense that they're trying to make bosses harder in an actual way. And I think that is absolutely wild. That is absolutely not gonna work. Because, listen, Diablo 4 could have had a chance to be at least Lost Ark adjacent. But it's not. And all of their decisions to make the bosses harder are probably going to be trash. Now, I have not checked them. I hope we're going to see a little bit about because it's going to be hilarious. But Diablo 4 will never actually make bosses harder because the current Diablo theme is just a bunch of morons, as I previously stated. They have no idea what makes a boss harder, okay? They probably haven't even played Elden Ring. And Elden Ring is not a hard game. The average boss has 3 mechanics there, and if you can't figure out that every boss has the same 3 mechanics, that's honestly more of a story about you than anything else. I play Lost Ark. Well, I stopped playing. And Lost Ark opened my eyes to what actually good boss mechanics are. When a boss has 40 different mechanics that can all wipe you, require pixel-perfect optimization of 4 people at the same time, sometimes 8, and if you fuck up at any point, congratulations, go again. And the fights literally take 10, 20, 30 minutes or plus, depending on circumstances. That is called good combat. Diablo 4 will never get that because Lost Ark is honestly too hard. If you think Elden Ring is hard, then you're probably not gonna get past the tutorial in Lost Ark, honestly. So, Diablo 4 has no chance to make anything good, or even honestly interesting. The sad reality of Diablo 4 is that, well, Diablo 3 actually had good boss design. A lot of bosses were interesting. A lot of bosses at least had mechanics. None of them were truly impactful in my honest opinion. None of them were truly that interesting, but at least it had. It had bosses with mechanics that needed to be done. Diablo 4 has no mechanics that ever need to be done. You just have invulnerability phases where some kind of dumb shit happens where you just AFK in a corner most of the time. It is a truly, truly sad state. So Season 8, again, Season 7 was currently the worst we have had because it actually implemented some interesting things, but all of those interesting things just don't make even the game better at this point because it's just shit. Okay? And Season 8 is going to be even worse because it implements more things, but none of those things actually make the game better somehow.
The Season 8 PTR is in full swing. I've been blasting it and I've already covered it in a few videos. If you have not seen those yet, I recommend you to go check them out because the game is changing quite a bit. Most notably, the game is getting a lot harder and the progression all the way through Torment 4 and beyond is getting a lot longer. And there is a massive rework of the lair bosses and basically all the boss fights in the game. So what happened is that Torment 4 is now roughly 5 times harder compared to before. And the bosses on top of that have been juiced up quite a lot. So you see me here right now, for example, on a pretty decked out Death Trap Rogue, which is like one of the strongest rogue builds out there. And it's not that easy to take down all those bosses. And on top of that, they also have a lot of one-shot mechanics now. So
One-shot mechanics most of the time are bad. Remember how this fight started? Where you could barely understand the hitbox of anything and everything was the same color? Yeah, at least they kind of fixed that. But now this boss is a joke because there's only like the spines that you need to evade. And after that, I mean, you're off to the races. That's the only mechanic this boss has. And I think this perfectly encapsulates how bad the game is. Because that's it. One mechanic.
this is just something to keep in mind. Even pretty tanky characters can get one-tapped by a lot of these abilities. So I want to talk about them real quick, boss by boss. There's also a few new...
Look at this. Look at this. You just need to learn in this pattern that the sides go out first and then it goes from the top. Well, from the middle. It's just dumb. It's just dumb.
Bosses, 3 new boss fights actually, with Urivar, the Harbinger of Hatred. This is the doggy Mephisto form.
There we go, another one.
And
beautiful.
The Belial from Diablo 3 is also coming back. So there's a lot of new stuff to go through here.
And here you need to figure out that the line that gets drawn first is the line that procs first. Fucking wow. Again, this is just so stupid. There is no difficulty in this. You need to just pay attention to which line gets procced first and then do accordingly. And that's the whole fight. This is why there's no hope for Diablo 4 as a hard game.
And I'm not going to give like a full strategy guide on each of those bosses. I'll probably make those eventually because I guess it will be helpful to understand the different things that are going on. I've tried all of them extensively, but the TLDR is farming bosses is going to be much more difficult than before. On top of this, some of those bosses have also been reworked. So here's an example right now with Duriel, for example. So he comes out and he has
a... fun fact, I actually don't know what Duriel really does. Because every time I have done him, it's just dead. Dead. So, I kind of know, I kind of vaguely remember some of his shit. But all of that pretty much surmounts to don't stand at the right in front of him so you don't get all of the damage on you because it can hit you multiple times. That's all I remember about this fight, by the way. It's that bad.
A few new moves. He now has 2 forced invulnerability phases at 66
and there we go. Didn't I say at the start of the video, forced invulnerability phase? Because again, this is the best Blizzard is gonna do. This is the best Blizzard can do. Modern Blizzard is incapable.
33% HP, for example. Here I was just like kind of testing a little bit, for example, how much damage you take and how you can avoid some of those abilities. Another thing to note is also that the tormented stacks have been removed. So previously, when you got hit by certain abilities on each of the boss fights, you no longer get this stacking damage mechanism. This is also the same in the pit now, so all of that is gone. Then it doesn't even exist on Lilith anymore, besides the blood boil stacking debuff that just kind of ramps up.
Yeah, you see that can hit, if you stand in front of him, that's gonna hit you all, and you're gonna die. I mean, wow.
The fight, but that's specific to Lilith. But overall, everything just kind of does a lot of damage now, and the stacking mechanic is gone. So this is like what you need to know, which also means that you can just very easily die from stuff that you don't know about, or, you know, it doesn't have this kind of like learning curve built into each fight anymore, basically, or this kind of like, okay, you can do like 1 or 2 mistakes and you ramp up this damage taken buff. No, everything just does full damage from the start, including in the pit, and a lot of stuff really hurts. What it also means is that some of the mechanics are really
I don't even know what any of this is.
out of whack in how much damage they do. This is like most noticeably on the pit bosses, for example. Like all their normal attacks and their auto attacks and all that kind of stuff that the bosses themselves do are kind of like irrelevant. And then, for example, in the pit, the shadows that appear, like, you know, Elias and Lilith, like doing their abilities, they just hit like a truck. So there's like a huge gap here, which is a little bit weird, but this is kind of how it works. So like the auto attacks are kind of whatever, and you have to dodge mostly the shadows. But yeah, outside of that, I think the reworks are actually relatively good on all of those bosses. These all have gotten a bit more interesting, but of course, forced immunity phase.
I hate this because, relatively speaking, yes, it's probably gonna be better than what was previously. But then again, what does it matter? It's not gonna get better than this. Is Andariel gonna get her nipples back in her nipple chain? No. I want biblically accurate Andariel, okay? Not whatever this burnt shit is.
Phases is not everyone's cup of tea. So even when you have a build that can like one-tap these bosses, for example, Andariel also has like...
I want to tank her at the top here and she's dead and look at her tongue, okay? That's what I want to do.
3 forced immunity phases now at 75, 50, and 25. And Andariel is just like a really hard boss now because you can't just like insta-kill her and then do like one of the easy intermission phases real quick and then she dies. No, you have to do all 3 phases. Everything hurts. So it's kind of wild how hard some of those bosses are, and I do expect that a lot of people will not farm some of those bosses if they can avoid it. For example, right now Andariel still has the same loot table as Duriel and Mephisto as well. They all have the same loot table actually, and this means that probably most people just skip Andariel. But I do hope...
I don't even know what that mechanic was just now. I have never seen it. I don't know any of these mechanics. But again, they're just lame. Okay? First of all, you know why Lost Ark's 40 different mechanics for boss work? Because they're choreographed good. It's not like boss is like this, suddenly he goes like this and everyone dies. That doesn't happen. There is a clear tell that lasts for a second or less sometimes that X thing is about to happen and you need to react. Here, there is no tell. They're probably reusing animations for different abilities that she does. It's bad.
Hope that they're gonna change the loot tables a little bit and maybe slightly rebalance the bosses as a result as well, because they are fairly uneven in how hard they are. Some of them are very...
You know what's gonna piss people off? Because I already see it, okay? The fog wall. When you die and everyone's dead, it doesn't reset instantly. Sometimes you need to wait there like 20 seconds to try again. It's the dumbest shit ever.
Easy because you can just one-tap them and they also don't have crazy mechanics. And then others like Andariel are like on a whole different level where you have...
Oh, and by the way, I don't know what a Citadel coin is. I have not done the Citadel raid or whatever the hell it's called.
Have forced immunity phases. Like...
Yeah, I have literally not even done that. I mean, I cannot be asked.
7 different one-shots, and the fight just kind of like lasts a lot longer than some others. So something to keep in mind here. I hope that this might get balanced out a little bit better. So to speak to this point here real quick, I don't really like that there are multiple bosses that drop the same unit.
This boss is stupid. It's if you are a game designer, a game developer, or anyone, and you are making a boss, whenever something is put on the ground, and this is fundamentally 100% true for every situation ever possible in life. When a boss puts something on the ground, that should be 100% the only thing you are concentrated on, because that is some kind of mechanic that's happening that you need to do. If the boss ever puts anything on the ground and it doesn't matter, or it's just a puddle of fucking fire or shit again, then that's a poorly designed boss. And there is literally never a situation where these words are not true.
Unique items. I think every single boss should have a specific loot table specifically tied to that boss, because we can target on the materials of those bosses, and we can even convert some of those materials into others at the alchemist now. For example, all of the...
God, this is gonna be so annoying to actually do when you can't one-shot him, because again, look at this. It's just the whole place is overfilled with lightning, And there is 100% no code that prevents this guy from casting the 5 lightnings from above that are gonna stack on you and kill you instantaneously without you going through this to try and avoid it, which is gonna probably kill you instantly also. This is probably gonna be one of the poorest, worst designed fights in gaming history when they give this shit more damage.
Small bosses, so Gregor, Varshan, Beast, and Seer, they drop these Stygian stones, and you can use them as kind of like a joker piece to do any of.
But again, I honestly think you're just gonna be able to one-shot the bosses. That's honestly what I think is gonna happen.
The other 3 bosses, Duriel, Mephisto, and Andariel, and this means that everyone will just choose to do Duriel because Duriel is by far the easiest out of those 3, and they all have the same loot table right now. So I think that's kind of stupid, and I would really hope.
Yeah, that by the way doesn't make sense. All the bosses have the same table, and you're gonna choose. Why would you ever choose anything that's not easy?
To see that
because you're farming it. Diablo 4 has the problem of Endgame, the fact that everything is just given to you. The pinnacle bosses are just farmable. Everyone farms them because there's no point in farming anything else.
Gonna see like all of the unique items distributed between the different bosses, which also means that you can just target farm the stuff that you want much better, because right now most bosses have something like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 items or so in their loot table. But if you actually distribute this evenly and don't have any overlap, then most bosses will have like 3 items or something like that. So you will actually get the stuff that you want much more reliably, which,
by the way, I kind of want that. One of the things that I liked about Diablo 4, even though everything surrounding it is fucked, is the fact that, you know, if you farmed in the late game, the end game, you had to actually do this boss, then you switch to this boss, then you switch to this boss, because it created this. And essentially, how the way that it worked was how Obalds in the Whispering Tree used to work before Blizzard fucked all of that up, obviously. And it was Obalds in the Whispering Tree was not something that you would actually do constantly, but it was, oh, I got the Whispering Tree done. Cool, I like that. Let's go get some kind of small reward. Maybe something good drops. Obalds, oh, I'm gonna go Gamba. You know, once in a couple of hours you could do that. And that was great, because it was something that, you know, just passively accumulated. The same way that previously, I'm saying previously, but that's currently how the game works, is that you get materials for one boss, then you get materials for another boss, and you're like looking, okay, I got a bunch of these materials, gonna go do this. It makes this situation where you're not constantly just repetitively doing one thing. And this rework is gonna make you just constantly do only one thing, and that's gonna suck. That's gonna be lame. That's gonna be bad.
Which I think is a good thing. And in fact, we could even like lower the amount of boss material drops overall as a result, because, well, you can just get the stuff that you want, you know, more like much more easily from the boss that you're farming. So I think that would be a good move here.
Also, by the way, don't worry about the season mechanics being locked behind these bosses. Blizzard, they too will probably make it that you can acquire all of these things, all of the seasonal mechanics without killing the bosses. Because there's no way the current players playing this game are gonna not bitch and whine and scream about the fact that, oh, it's too hard. Oh, it's too hard. I need to kill Lilith. One mechanic, that's too hard. Yep, it is what it is.
And I really hope to see such a change. In general, also what you need to know about how the loot works now is that the loot is kind of like each for themselves. So you can now actually realistically solo farm bosses, and you have this chest here that spawns at the end. So in case you're not aware yet, you kill the boss, you can actually summon the boss without anything, but then you have to open the chest with the materials. So you see this here, it requires 12 living steel for.
This is good because I'll tip my fedora to Blizzard once here, because at least they understand that people are going to be pissed with how stupid the bosses are by making them harder, which means that they're going to be like, oh yeah, we need to allow people to do this for free because it's just too stupid. It's too annoying. Okay, if we don't allow people to do this for free, everyone's going to riot.
For example, and this is personal for every player in the party. So boss rotas are not really a big thing anymore. You see here on the side, it says party members increase their chance of an additional treasure from hordes, but compared to the previous ×4 loot, now you get something like a plus 20% loot. So it's kind of
It's
irrelevant
still
to do
worth
party
it.
play here. You get one extra item, or there's like a chance for an extra item per additional player. So when you have 3 additional players, I think you get 1 extra item, and with fewer players, you have like a chance. So, you know, you get like 5 items guaranteed, and then +1 from party. So this is kind of how that works, at least on Torment 4. I'm not sure if like the extra chance and the extra item is the same on lower torments, so this might be a bit more efficient if you're like just starting out on
No one cares. Everyone's gonna only do the chest at Torment 4. Shut
Torment
up.
1 or something. But overall, you know,
And that's, by the way, also a bad part about this game. It's the fact that you only interact with any mechanic this game has when you are effectively max Torment. Or maybe once in the beginning of Torment 3 or something like that. And until that point, you don't interact with any reward structures because all of them are going to be 150% redundant the moment you go to the max tier. So you try to save all of your resources until Torment 4. That's how everyone plays. So all of the things you acquire resource-wise until max level and endgame are meaningless because no sane person is ever going to use it.
boss rotas are kind of dead outside of the fact that, yeah, it's slightly more efficient and people can carry each other and kill the bosses for other people. So I think this is a really good change here with just making boss material farming a little bit more relevant. And, you know, it's like, yeah, more personal now, more fair now. So I think that's fine. And it still rewards party play to an acceptable degree, to where, yeah, there is like, you know, a little bit of friction in like making a party. You have to wait for people, you know, not everyone has like the same speed and so on. So you're getting rewarded a little bit for that, I think is fine. And this roughly 20% efficiency bump is an acceptable difference between solo and party, I would say. Another new thing is something that you see here right now. So after you open the chest, there's also Belial, the mini Belial that can appear. So here just has a chance to pop up. And right now, this chance is extremely high on the PTR, but I've been told that this is actually happening like more often than it should. But basically, there is a chance for Mini Belial to appear when you open the chest after the 20 seconds timer has elapsed.
And look at all these things on the ground. But they're not going to give a salute filter because they're prideful fucks.
And he drops the same loot table again, so you get kind of double loot for free, kind of. And it's like a nice little pop-up. And he also drops the materials for the Big Belial. And I'm going to talk about Big Belial in a second. But essentially, it's just kind of like a freebie round 2. And it just kind of helps you to get the stuff going that you want. Now, speaking of the Belial spawns, at least what we see in the PTR, they are way too frequent. It's like a 50-50 or something. And I would prefer maybe something like a 10% chance or so, like much more rare, but maybe even juicier, because it's kind of getting annoying, to be honest, seeing him that often. And well, as they said, apparently it's more often than it should be. So I hope it's going to be somewhere in that range of like the spawns, just so that we don't constantly get annoyed. Now let's talk about the wait timer though. So when you kill a boss and you open the chest, there is a 20-second forced wait timer before you can resummon the boss. I suppose this is done because of, you know, party play mostly, and, you know, everyone needs to get their loot, and then Belial pops up at some point. But honestly, after doing even like very small bossing sessions, this already felt horrible. So I hope that at the very least we're gonna get a much shorter timer, something like 5 seconds or something.
See, because all of I mentioned a couple of good things, right? That they did, but I honestly think they're all on accident because again, they fundamentally don't understand these things. Why are you putting like a dampener on shit? Okay, if you're putting a dampener on party play, what, do you not trust people to be smart enough to go and wait until everyone is back to start the new boss? Are you really that fucking stupid? So again, the sad part is I firmly am of the 100% belief that everything that Blizzard does that is good for this game is accidental.
And lastly, let's talk about the difficulty. So the difficulty ranking is actually quite interesting here, because we have the 4 small bosses, the 3 mid-tier bosses, and then the big boss Belial. And it turns out Belial is like one of the easiest one out of them. So I kind of made this ranking here.
Okay, yeah, I'm just not gonna even watch that in that case. Anyway, that was Woody Joe, 10 out of 10. Yep, Diablo 4 is fucked and dead. Rest in piss, I guess. Bye.